to freeze the budget. Well, the Republicans are smart enough to say, wait a minute, you Democrats have enough votes to do this. You control Congress. We don't want any part of it. We want to go to the people and say, hey, folks, we don't want to freeze. We're on your side. And stick the Democrats with all of this anti-labor, anti-consumer, pro-Wall Street action. So the Republicans are positioning themselves very nicely for this November's midterm elections to say that they're the good guys and to depict Obama's crowd as the oligarchy.
The claim is made that matters would have been worse if the banks had not been bailed out. What do you think of this claim?
They would have been worse for the upper 10% of the population that owns the banks. They would have been worse for the bank's stockholders and the bank owners. If the banks wouldn't have been bailed out, they couldn't have given these $100 million bonuses. They wouldn't have been able to give the money to the bankers that they've used to buy yachts, that they've used to buy the art market. There would have gone the art market. There would have gone the yacht market. Already prices in the Hamptons, where a lot of the rich people live, are going down. The economy would have been just fine. And this is one of the problems that immediately the Wall Street Journal picked up from the hearings on Geithner and Bernanke and Paulson last Wednesday. The Wall Street Journal virtually accused them of perjury because Mr. Geithner and Mr. Paulson said if we wouldn't have bailed out AIG, the junk insurance company, then there would have been a meltdown of the entire economy because AIG, being an insurance company, insures people's houses, and what would people have done about their house insurance and their car insurance? Well, the Wall Street Journal immediately on the editorial page quoted from testimony last year where the New York Insurance Administrator said, wait a minute, we have in insurance the equivalent of a Glass-Steagall Act. We've segregated the bread and butter operations of the insurance company, AIG, from their gambling operations, the derivative trade and the default swaps that are done mainly out of their London office. As a matter of fact, the New York Insurance Administrator testified, we have so much money that I was going to recommend that the New York branch of the AIG insurance people give $20 billion back to AIG of just extra savings they don't need. But of course now he's not going to because he realizes that the kind of people that are in charge there. So the Wall Street Journal said, wait a minute, how can Mr. Paulson and Mr. Geithner say that they had to bail out AIG for $185 billion? Otherwise there would have been a disaster for the consumers. It's all for the little guy. When you have the local consumer insurance administrator saying no problem at all. These were well-funded, completely protected. So one didn't hear any response yet to last week's Wall Street Journal editorials, but they're quite right. Now, I think it's ironic that you have the nation's leading business paper that's exposing the pro-Wall Street distortions that the Obama team is making, Geithner and other people, instead of the usual left-wing press or the labor press, which has sort of been silenced by the fact is, well, wait a minute, we don't want to say anything bad against the Democrats. They're supposed to be working for us, when obviously they're not working for them. At least the corporate Democrats are not working for the traditional Democratic constituencies, the labor unions, the consumers, and the other people who normally vote Democratic.
Well, right. Now, was AIG's insurance business really ready to collapse?
No, only the derivatives business to Wall Street, the gambling business would collapse. And even then it probably wasn't, because these derivatives, the Wall Street Journal points out, nobody really knows what they're worth because there's no regulation of them. There's no regulation of them, and there's no public market trade. So there's no market price of these. Basically, you had Goldman Sachs say, we think these junk mortgages are a lot worth because it turns out that we've been insuring mortgages that have a lot of consumer fraud in it because the government, and specifically Mr. Bernanke, has refused to prosecute consumer fraud. So we have a lot of consumer fraud on the book. So we think the mortgages that we've got swaps are worth, you better pay us $14 billion. Well, AIG said, wait a minute, they're not that bad. And in fact, it now looks like Goldman and other Wall Street firms want to pay much more than that for these things. They weren't all worth this. But the government said, whatever Goldman Sachs says they're worth, we're going to pay 100 cents on the dollar. Now, the interesting thing is there was another company that went bankrupt a few months before that the Fed paid only 20 cents on the dollar, but those weren't the Democratic campaign contributors. Those weren't the Obama crowd. They were people who didn't contribute to the Obama campaign or the other campaign. They were not paid 80% of the price. So the Wall Street Journal said, wait a minute, this is pay to play. This is what governors are going to jail for in New Jersey. These guys are crooks. And it looks to me like they have a pretty good case.
Well, right, and I thought, well, according to what you've written, AIG was actually paid 100 cents on the dollar for the securities worth about a fifth as much.
That's right. That's what the testimony was, and that's what the Wall Street Journal is saying. So the irony is you're getting all of this critique of financial crime from the business press itself, because they realize that American industry is stuck if they turn over control of the economy from the manufacturing sector, from agriculture. If they turn it all over to Wall Street, these guys are a gang. That's why Franklin Roosevelt called them banksters. That sort of gets the idea across. They'll take whatever they can get, and as long as they're in charge of approving whoever is appointed the financial administrator, they're going to insist that whoever is the head of the Fed be sort of a useful idiot like Mr. Bernanke, who really believes the guff that he's coming out about this trickle-down theory and deregulation, and you have to let the market rule, meaning the Wall Street insiders are going to essentially be deciding how much the government's supposed to bail it out for. And this is what Iceland did on its way to collapse. There are a lot of dress rehearsals in recent times about countries that have gone down this route, and that's what America's going down.
So was it really necessary to not let AIG go bankrupt?
No, the best thing would have been, the economy would have been much better off had AIG gone bankrupt, and had most of these Wall Street firms gone bankrupt, including Citibank. The problem is that the people who own these firms, in Citibank, it's largely the Arab countries that have been putting in money, Kuwait and Arab republics. Nothing would have been heard at all had this wealthiest 1% of the population lost some of its gamblers. I think I've said before in your show, in order to play the derivative trade, in order to have a hedge fund or to undertake these contracts, you have to sign an agreement saying, I'm rich enough that I can afford to lose all my money and I'll be okay. So the economy would have been okay. What has happened, meanwhile, is that the Congressional Research Service said that in 1979, the richest 1% of the population had 37% of the revenue from wealth. And by 2004, 25 years later, this proportion had gone up to 57%. In other words, 1% of the population in America has increased its take by 20 percentage points to 57%. It's probably about two-thirds right now of the wealth going to 1%. If you're going to have a democracy, if you're going to restore the kind of income and wealth distribution that you've had throughout most of the 20th century, the best thing that would happen would be to let the bad debts go, which means you let the debts go. Every debt has savings by somebody on the opposite side of the balance sheet, and these savings are mainly by the wealthiest 1 to 10%. The best thing would have been for them to lose all of their predatory taking. Instead, the Obama administration has come out on the side of the predators against the real economy, the production and consumption economy.
You've mentioned Obama's proposed freeze on discretionary spending, but Obama is not proposing to freeze military or homeland security spending. Why not?
Well, for one thing, he doesn't want to take on the Pentagon or the right wing. He essentially wants to get the right wing to support him because he realizes that as the economy shrinks more and more, as unemployment rises and living standards fall, the right wing is going to be his constituency.
You write that Wall Street is not the economy. It is a superstructure of credit and money management privileges positioned to extract as much as it can while threatening to close down